Muito bem. Convidamos para o palco o senhor prefeito municipal de Campinas, Jonas Donizete, e também o palestrante deste encontro, o senhor Arun Gandhi, acompanhado também da secretária Elaine Jocelane e da primeira-dama Sandra Ciossi.
Meus amigos, bom dia. Eu queria falar primeiro algumas palavras de agradecimento. Diz que a gratidão é a virtude da alma. E embora o cerimonial já tenha feito alguns agradecimentos, eu acho que caberia melhor nos meus lábios, na minha boca como prefeito. Primeiro quero agradecer vocês, o tempo de vocês, né? Um mundo tão corrido, tão agitado, a gente muitas vezes seleciona o que vai fazer, como vai fazer. E eu não sei quanto a vocês, mas eu acho que a gente está ganhando tempo aqui hoje, né? Já tivemos uma bela apresentação, textos, e eu queria agradecer a todos que se envolveram. Nós tivemos muitos voluntários. Queria agradecer essa moça, Eliane Jocelane. Vem cá, ali. Pode aplaudir. Ela... Veja como são as coisas. Eu me elegi prefeito e nem conhecia a Eliane. Ela era uma das que trabalhava na prefeitura, funcionária de carreira, tem uma história linda de vida. Vou até cometer aqui uma indelicadeza, é mãe de 3 filhos adotivos, é uma jovem solteira, mãe de 3 filhos adotivos, e que nos ajuda na Secretaria de Assistência Social, que é tão importante para a prefeitura. Em nome dela, eu quero cumprimentar a todos, toda a equipe que se envolveu, né? Eu estou retratando, figurando a figura dela. Agradecer a minha esposa Sandra. Vem cá, amor. Pode aplaudir também. Não faz muito tempo, a minha primeira posse foi nesse palco aqui. E o indivíduo, a pessoa, ela escolhe, né? Eu disputei uma eleição. Quem compartilha a vida, às vezes não tem tanta escolha assim. E a Sandra tem sido uma companheira muito importante nos passos que eu tenho dado, e praticamente esse evento aqui todo foram as duas aí que se entenderam para que acontecesse as coisas que aconteceram aqui. E falar para vocês que para nós é muito importante a presença do Arun Gandhi. Ontem eu fiz um jantar simples na minha casa, recebi ele, convidei a minha filha. Ele é um homem de 84 anos, perguntei como é que era a rotina de vida dele, e sinceramente eu com 52, não sei se teria o fôlego dele para fazer as viagens mundo afora. Falou para mim como é que foi janeiro, fevereiro, os planos agora para março, e com uma ideia que é uma ideia que eu percebi no diálogo dele de 84 com a minha filha de 27, tem uma frase que diz que as pessoas que querem conversar sobre coisas fúteis, conversam sobre coisas ou pessoas, e as conversas nobres são sobre ideias. Eu percebi ali num momento que ele falava das ideias, falava das questões mundiais, e via o olhar, o brilho no olhar da minha filha. Então eu acredito que a gente tenha uma esperança. O nosso olhar é um olhar imediatista. Às vezes a gente acha que está no momento mais difícil, sofrendo mais que pode. Então eu achei muito bacana o espetáculo que nos foi mostrado, porque mostra que homens e mulheres tiveram muito mais agrúrias do que nós temos no decorrer da história, e tiveram força de superação. E eu acredito que nós também podemos ter essa força. Quando eu tive essa ideia há cerca de 1 ano atrás, eu sempre era questionado, e ainda ontem na entrevista coletiva, prefeito, e na prática? E na prática? Parece que se as pessoas não conseguirem segurar alguma coisa na mão, algo, elas não acreditam numa ideia. Eu acho que a prática é o que cada um de nós vamos levar daqui hoje, e podemos ser um multiplicador. Eu falo que se a gente tem um aprendizado em tudo que faz, eu aprendi que gerenciar, que administrar uma cidade é uma lição de humildade. Em tempos difíceis, a gente tem que ter esse compartilhamento. Ontem eu dei posse ao Conselho de Pais de Campinas. Estava marcado num hotel de luxo da cidade. Eu transferi para o meu gabinete, porque muitos que tomaram posse talvez não teriam dinheiro para pagar o estacionamento daquele hotel. E mesmo assim, são pessoas que estão interessadas no bem-estar da nossa cidade. Ontem eu fiz um relato que quando assumi a prefeitura, aumentei o contingente da guarda, fizemos o projeto Campinas Bem Segura, de instalações de câmeras OCRs, toda entrada e saída da cidade, ou seja, aquelas coisas que as pessoas considerariam as medidas práticas. Mas eu falei que eu acho que vai além disso. Eu acho que nós temos que ter um envolvimento, não é normal o que está acontecendo no Brasil, com relação à questão de segurança, de violência. No mês de maio, há um ano eu assumi a função de presidente da Frente Nacional dos Prefeitos. Não disputei eleição, não busquei isso, fui chamado, fui convocado pelos meus colegas prefeitos de capitais, assumi, e nós vamos entregar um documento aos homens e mulheres, aos chamados presidenciáveis, falando dos problemas do Brasil. E nós elencamos 3 principais. Temos muitos, mas entre esses 3, saúde, geração de emprego e segurança pública. Ou seja, uma sociedade onde a gente tenha um pouco mais de paz e de sensação de segurança. Então eu gostaria muito que vocês nos ajudassem. Eu falo que nos dias que nós estamos vivendo, quando nós tivemos o problema da água, da escassez de água, eu falei que às vezes o neto em casa, que chega para o vô e fala: vô, fecha a torneira, vai acabar a água do planeta. Vale mais do que o prefeito falar qualquer comunicado na televisão. Então, cada um de nós, no ambiente que vivemos, podemos ser esse multiplicador. O evento não se encerra aqui. Vocês foram convidados, né? Cada um teve aí um motivo para ser convidado, para estar conosco. Amanhã nós vamos fazer um evento aberto para quem quis se inscrever. Será na Estação Cultura. Vocês também estão convidados amanhã à tarde, né, Helena e Jocelaine? Que hora será ali? Às 17 horas será o talk show com o Arun Gandhi. E tem a programação desde manhã, desde as 9 da manhã. Meus amigos, era uma breve mensagem mesmo de gratidão, e que vocês nos ajudem a comunicar essa ideia, né? Falando sobre paz e tempos difíceis, né, que foram narrados aqui, nas escrituras, em Lamentações de Jeremias, tem uma frase que é um pedaço de um poema que ele fala dos momentos difíceis e diz: mães boas coziam seus filhos. É até uma incongruência, né? Mas ele usa essa expressão forte para narrar o quanto era duro a situação que vivia ali aquele povo. E naquele mesmo trecho, depois, mais para frente, ele diz: orai pela paz na cidade, porque a paz na cidade é a sua paz. Então, muitas vezes a gente fala de paz mundial, de paz, mas a paz que é importante também, mas a paz na cidade, ela é a nossa paz. E por último, muito obrigado ao Arun Gandhi por estar aqui conosco, por compartilhar da sua experiência. E certamente a presença dele tem abrilhantado, vai abrilhantar agora esse nosso evento. E amanhã, como ele conversou olhando nos olhos da minha filha, eu tenho certeza que ele vai poder conversar e fazer brilhar o olhar de muitos jovens da nossa cidade. Um bom dia a todos vocês. E eu elogiei a gravata dele, olha que bonita e que moderna, tá vendo? Falei para ele: beautiful tie. Seja bem, welcome.
Muito bem, antes de passarmos então a palavra ao nosso palestrante magma, senhor Arun Gandhi, gostaríamos, por gentileza, de solicitar a todos, se tiverem problema com os tradutores, nós estamos com as monitoras, as equipes nos corredores. Se você tiver algum problema com o aparelho, é só você levantar a mão e as monitoras vão até você para resolver. Lembrando que o aparelho não há necessidade de mexer. Ele está na frequência 76.1 e é somente essa frequência que será transmitida a tradução simultânea. E a única coisa que você pode manipular é o volume, ok? Então, a todos, muito obrigado e uma excelente palestra agora com o senhor Arun Gandhi.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable Mr. Mayor, the First Lady, and all the dignitaries who have assembled here today. I don't have words to express my gratitude for the love and for the warm welcome that I have received in Campinas. It's an amazing city, amazing people, and I am glad to be a part of this event. I've been asked to speak to you about the legacy of love, a legacy that I inherited from my grandparents and from my parents, and I am very proud of that legacy. But before I tell you about my legacy, I want to share with you a story that comes from ancient India. The story is of an ancient Indian king who had two sons, and he was growing old and he wanted to retire from his work as the king, and he didn't know which son should inherit his title. And so one day he decided, and he told both his sons that you have to go around the world, and the one that comes back here first will inherit this kingdom. So one of the boys went off in a hurry. He went right around the world, and the other boy just remained at home, and he circled his parents, went around his parents, and just stood there. So when the other boy came back home, the king asked, said, "You went around the world, and what did you see?" And he said, "Oh, I've seen wonderful things, and I learned wonderful things, and I'm going to try to use all that knowledge that I acquired to make this kingdom great." And then he asked the younger boy, "What did you learn?" And he said, "My world is around you, my parents. What you have taught me and what you have given me as inheritance is all that I need to make this kingdom as great as you have made it." So he received the kingdom, and he received the legacy of love, the same way I have received the legacy of love from my grandparents. I want to share with you two spatially important stories, two important lessons that I learned from my grandfather. When I was living in South Africa as a young boy, I was born there, I was subject to a lot of prejudices. I was beaten up by whites because they thought I was too black, and then beaten up by blacks because they thought I was too white. And it filled me with a lot of anger and rage. I wanted to fight back again. I wanted to be strong and fight with anybody who abused me. And that is when my parents decided it's time to go to India and give me the opportunity to live with grandfather and hopefully learn something from him. And the first lesson that grandfather taught me was about understanding anger and being able to use that energy constructively. He said anger is like electricity. It's just as powerful and just as useful, but only if we use it intelligently. But it can be just as deadly and destructive if we abuse it. So just as we channel electrical energy and bring it into our lives and use it for the good of humanity, we must learn to channel anger in the same way so that we can use that energy for the good of humanity rather than abuse it and cause violence and death. He suggested that I should write an anger journal. He said every time you get angry about something, don't act on it, don't say anything or do anything that is going to change the course of your life. But write a journal with the intention of finding a solution to the problem, and then commit yourself to finding a solution. Now this is very important because a lot of people today do write an anger journal, but they simply pour their anger out into the journal. So every time they go back and read the journal, they are just reminded of the incident and they get angry all over again. So we don't want the journal to be a reminder of the incident. We want the journal to help us find a solution to the problem. So it's very important that we write that journal with the intention of finding a solution. I did this for many years, and I must say it helped me considerably in understanding my anger and being able to channel that energy constructively. But to do this, we need to have the strength of our mind. And unfortunately, very few of us have that strength. We are very conscious of having a strong physical body. So we do a lot of exercises and we do dieting and all kinds of things so that we have a healthy, strong body. But we don't pay any attention to strengthening our mind. And the result is that at any given moment, our mind is filled with a dozen different thoughts that are going through the mind at the same time. And so we are not able to focus on what is happening right now. Now that is an indication that we have no control over our minds, that we cannot keep all these other thoughts out of the mind. It's like the Buddhists say that our mind is like a monkey jumping around on the trees. So it's important for us to do mental exercises just as it is important for us to do physical exercises. And what my grandfather made me do was to sit quietly in a room for a few minutes every day, hold in front of me a flower that gave me pleasure to look at, and then close my eyes and see for how long I could keep that image in my mind's eye. In the beginning, I found that the moment I closed my eyes, the image vanished, because I had no control of the mind. But when I began to do this exercise regularly every day, I found that I could keep that image longer and longer in my mind, and to that extent, my mind was coming under my control. So it's important that we have control over our minds so that when we face a crisis, we don't lose our mind and do the wrong thing. When we have control, we can stop ourselves from doing the wrong thing and learn to do the right thing and find a right solution. I did this, and I think it's a very important lesson, because Harvard University recently did a study on violence, and they came to the conclusion that more than 85% of the violence that we experience in our lives personal lives as well as the lives of nations is generated by anger. We get angry and we do things and say things that we regret for the rest of our lives. So it's very important for us to understand anger and be able to control it so that we don't commit violence and create chaos in our societies. The other lesson that I learned from him gave me an insight into his philosophy. It was through a little 3-inch pencil. I was coming back from my tuitions one day, and I had this little 3-inch pencil in my hands, and I decided, like a 12-year-old, I said, I need a better pencil. This is too small for me to use. And without a second thought, I just threw the pencil away because I was so sure that grandfather would give me a new pencil when I asked him for one. But that evening when I met grandfather and asked him for a new pencil, instead of giving me one, he subjected me to a lot of questions. He wanted to know how the pencil became small and where did I throw it away and why did I throw it away and on, and I couldn't understand why he was making such a fuss over a little pencil until he told me to go out and look for it. And I said, you must be joking. He said, you don't expect me to look for a little pencil in the dark? He said, oh yes, I do. He has a flashlight. And he sent me out with a flashlight to look for this pencil, and I think I must have spent about 2 hours searching for it. And when I finally found it and brought it to him, he said, now I want you to sit here and learn 2 very important lessons. The first lesson is that even in the making of a simple thing like a pencil, we use a lot of the world's natural resources. And when we throw them away, we are throwing away the world's natural resources, and that is violence against nature. And the second lesson is that because in an affluent society we can afford to buy all these things in bulk, we overconsume the resources of the world. And because we overconsume them, we are depriving people elsewhere of these resources, and they have to live in poverty, and that is violence against humanity. And that was the first time I realized that all of these things that we do every day, consciously and unconsciously, things that we overconsume or throw away or waste, that all of these constitute violence of some sort, either against nature or against other human beings. It has become so much a part of our lives because we have created a whole culture of violence around us, a culture of violence that has seeped so deeply in every aspect of our lives that our sports has become violent, our entertainment is violent, our relationships are violent, our religion is violent, our economy is violent, everything about us is violent. Now, if we have that kind of a violent atmosphere all around us, how can we create peace? Peace is not the absence of war. Peace is where the whole population can live in harmony and love and respect for each other. His whole philosophy is based on love and respect. That is why I call the legacy of love. Because without love and respect, understanding and acceptance and compassion, we cannot practice nonviolence. Nonviolence is not about fighting an enemy. It is about transforming a friend. He never believed that he had enemies in the world. Even when he was fighting for India's independence, he said, the British are not our enemies. They are our friends, and we want to transform them. So when we have that attitude of being one and respecting everybody, then we are able to find nonviolent solutions to the problem. But when we divide people and we want to consider them to be enemies and dehumanize them, just as we do with criminals and other people, we dehumanize them and then we think that they are not human, they don't deserve any love and respect. Everybody deserves love and respect. Everybody has to be loved and respected, because that is the only way we can change people's hearts. Today, unfortunately, in the world, we have become very selfish and self-centered. Not just us as human beings, but even nations have become selfish and self-centered. And every nation has a policy, foreign policy, based on what is good for their nation. And the result is that every nation is exploiting other parts of the world to get what is good for them. They don't care about what the consequences of that is going to be. We want it for our nation, and we are going to get it somehow or the other. And that kind of philosophy exists also within us. We are also becoming very selfish and self-centered, greedy. We want more and more of the pie. We want to accumulate more and more of the money, of the resources that are available, and we don't care what happens to other people. And that kind of an attitude is what is creating the divisions in the world between the rich and the poor. And when we have that kind of a division in every country between the rich and the poor, and within the world between the rich nations and the poor nations, we cannot expect to have security. We have the wrong notion that security and stability of any country depends on how strong we are. So we build a big army, we spend a lot of money in acquiring all kinds of weapons so that we can destroy our so-called enemies. And we think that we can safeguard our corner of the world and not be concerned about the rest of the world. But we are all so interlinked and interrelated and interconnected that what happens to one person is eventually going to happen to us. What happens to one country is eventually going to affect the rest of the world. So no country, however powerful, is going to be able to ensure its stability and security if the rest of the world is allowed to go down the drain. The security and stability of any nation in the world depends on the security and stability of the whole world. And unless we create that kind of a relationship in the world where we are concerned about those who are poor and marginalized and do something to help them grow, we are not going to have peace in this world. We also have to remember that when we talk about violence in human society, violence is not just the physical violence. Grandfather made me draw a genealogical tree of violence, just as we do a family tree with grandfather and the children and so on. He made me draw a tree of violence, with violence as the grandparent, and physical violence and passive violence as the two branches. And every day before I went to bed, I had to analyze and examine everything that I had experienced during the day. Things that I may have done to other people or people may have done to me. Anything, I had to analyze all of that and put it in their appropriate places on that tree. If it was physical violence, where we use physical force against people, that would go under physical violence. But if it's a kind of violence where we don't use any physical force, and yet we hurt people, directly or indirectly, consciously or unconsciously, because of the way of life that we practice, a selfish, greedy way of life. All the discrimination and oppression and all of these things that go on in our societies is a form of passive violence. When he made me do this introspection, I was amazed that within a few months, I was able to fill up a whole wall in my room with acts of passive violence. The physical violence didn't grow very much because there is a limit to how much physical violence one can use. But the passive violence grew endlessly. And that is when Grandfather explained to me the connection between the two. He said, we commit passive violence all the time, every day, consciously and unconsciously. That generates anger in the victim, and the victim then resorts to physical violence to get justice. So it is passive violence that fuels the fire of physical violence. So logically, if we want to put out that fire of physical violence, we have to cut off the fuel supply. And since the fuel supply comes from each one of us, we have to become the change that we wish to see in the world. If we don't change ourselves, don't change our weaknesses to strengths, don't change our attitudes, we will never be able to create peace. So the way we can create peace is by educating the children in the right way. Today, schools and colleges, unfortunately, have become factories to produce workers needed by industry. We produce so many scientists and so many doctors and so many engineers and send them out into the marketplace to get a job and make money. But that is not education. Education in the philosophy of nonviolence has to have the 3 H's, the head, the heart, and the hands. The 3 things have to be coordinated and used in education. We need to teach them book knowledge, that is the head. We need to teach them compassion and love and understanding of society, that is the heart. And we need to teach them to do things with their own hands. And it's that kind of education, a holistic education, that can make a difference in future generations. And maybe they can work for peace better than we did. So these are things that I wanted to share with you, and I want to conclude now with one more story. My grandfather used to be very fond of telling stories, and so I want to share them with you. I could go on and on speaking for another couple of hours, but I've been allotted 35 minutes, and I think I'm coming close to 35 minutes, so I'll just share one more story with you. And that is, again, an ancient Indian king who once became very curious about the meaning of peace. And he invited all the intellectuals in his kingdom to come and explain the meaning of peace. And everybody came there and did their best, but nobody could convince the king. And one day, there was an intellectual from another town who came on a visit, and the king asked him the meaning of peace. And he said, the only person who can give you a satisfactory answer is an old, wise man who lives outside your kingdom. But he is so old that he cannot come to you. You will have to go to him and ask him this question. So the next day, the king went to this wise man and asked him the meaning of peace. And the wise man went back into the house, came back with a grain of wheat, and placed that grain of wheat on the king's palm and said, "Here is your answer." And of course the king didn't know what a grain of wheat had to do with peace, and he didn't want to show his ignorance. So he quietly clutched that grain of wheat, went back to the palace, found a little gold box, and he placed that grain of wheat in the box. And every morning he would open the box to see if he could find an answer. And of course he couldn't find any answers. So a few days later, when the intellectual came back on a return visit, the king asked him to explain that you sent me to the wise man and he gave me this grain of wheat, and I don't know what this grain of wheat has to do with peace. So please explain. And that's when this wise man said, it's very simple. He said, as long as you keep this grain of wheat in this box, nothing is going to happen. It will eventually rot and perish, and that will be the end of the story. But if you allow this grain of wheat to interact with all the elements, if you had planted this in the soil outside, it would sprout and grow, and very soon you could have a whole field of wheat. And that is the meaning of peace. That if somebody has found peace and if they keep it in their hearts for their own personal gains, it will perish with them. But if they let it interact with all the elements, it would sprout and grow, and very soon we could have a whole world of peacemakers. So I have come here today as a peace farmer to plant the seed in your minds, and I hope that you won't let it rot and perish, but let it interact so that all of us together can change this world and make it a better place for future generations. Thank you very much.
Alô, som.
Muito bem, nós vamos agora abrir para perguntas da plateia. Nós teremos duas pessoas com microfone sem fio nos corredores para que vocês possam aí fazer as perguntas. E o senhor Arun Gandhi irá respondê-las. Nós já estamos registrando as pessoas que farão as perguntas e o nosso pessoal irá até vocês com o microfone sem fio para que façam, então, a pergunta ao senhor Arun.
Bom dia, parabéns pela palestra. Meu nome é Clarissa, eu faço doutorado em Engenharia Elétrica, eu sou presidente dos pós-graduandos da Engenharia Elétrica na Unicamp, faço também parte do Conselho da Mulher aqui em Campinas, dos direitos humanos, dos direitos das mulheres, e venho observado a política no mundo inteiro, inclusive aqui no Brasil. E gostaria que o senhor desse um conselho para que nós todos, como cidadãos, nos sentíssemos responsáveis por passar a oportunidade para as pessoas que não tiveram e para acabar com a vaidade dos políticos e de nós mesmos, para que a pessoa mais importante para todos nós fossem aqueles que realmente precisam. Essa compaixão que a gente precisa ter, que a gente precisa passar adiante. E eu vejo que é muito difícil, e me coloco também, diminuir a nossa vaidade, para que a gente possa ter um amor tão grande pelo próximo, que a gente consiga ajudar verdadeiramente. E que o mais importante seja passar o amor e a paz para os próximos e para quem realmente precisa.
Yes, I think it is very important for all of us. And this is, a major problem in every city, every country in the world, where population is divided between the rich and the poor, and nobody does anything to alleviate that. And whenever they do anything, it's very little, very few people do it. So I think it's important what we launched yesterday at the City Hall, alliance between the citizens group as well as the administration to work together to solve many of these problems. I do want to say one thing, and that is we have become very conscious of wanting our rights. We are always fighting for our rights, and this is across the board. Everybody wants their rights, but nobody wants their responsibilities. And I think rights and responsibilities are two sides of the same coin. You cannot enjoy rights if you are not willing to share the responsibility. So we have to instill in people that while they can be concerned about their rights, they should also be concerned about the responsibilities of the citizens.
A próxima pergunta, por favor.
Posso fazer?
Sim.
Meu nome é Lino. Fui junto com os colegas ontem empossado no Conselho Municipal de Cultura de Paz. E eu ia pedir um conselho para o nosso conselho, mas já foi feita a pergunta. E eu queria saber do senhor, muitos dizem que nós estamos passando por um momento de mudança de era no planeta, onde nós estamos passando momentos de transformações profundas, não só na civilização, nas pessoas, mas como no planeta, como em Gaia mesmo, o planeta como um ser planetário. Eu queria saber o que o senhor pensa disso e se o senhor tem alguma perspectiva positiva, animadora em relação ao futuro.
Yes, I do have a very exciting perspective of the future. We have to be hopeful. If we lose hope altogether, then we are finished. There won't be any civilization. So the hope that we can still change the bad habits of people and make them good is something that we have to cherish. But we have also to remember that none of us have the capacity to change the whole world. That we can change ourselves and change a few people around us. And that is what should be our goal. We should become the change, we should change people around us, and that is how the peace will grow, and eventually everybody will become peaceful.
Senhor?
Bom dia. Alô? Ah, sim, pegou. Tá. Deixa esse aqui, João, com ele aqui, por favor. O outro vai descer. Pois não, agora a bateria está funcionando. Uma satisfação estar na presença do senhor. Mais ou menos na mesma ideia que veio na pergunta anterior. O senhor que vem de um país que tem várias semelhanças com o Brasil, qual a perspectiva do senhor em relação a onde viria as mudanças necessárias? Será que desses países que estão ebulindo, como o Brasil, talvez esteja evidente, o senhor tem acompanhado talvez o momento financeiro, político, social, talvez a Índia também de alguma forma, ou será que virá de movimentos mais organizados, mais pensados, mais harmônicos para depois termos a paz? Qual seria a perspectiva do senhor em qual movimento que virá para trazer um ambiente mais favorável para a paz? Que o senhor pode ilustrar alguns movimentos que já estejam acontecendo com forte potencial de transformação?
Well, that is a very profound question, and I will try to answer it as best as I can. Unfortunately, we have become materialistic in our lives, and every nation has become materialistic. So money and materials are the most important things. We are always wanting to buy the biggest car and the fastest car and the biggest house and all of these things. And so we are all focused on achieving more and more material gains. Ideally, we should be concerned about those who are marginalized and try to raise them up if we really believe in peace. Grandfather had two aspects to his philosophy of nonviolence. One of them was trusteeship, which he said that each one of us has a talent that we acquire through our education or inheritance. But we think that we own the talent, and therefore we exploit that talent for our own personal gains, whatever our ambition may be. He said that we don't own the talent, we are trustees of the talent. And as trustees of the talent, we should be willing to use it for other people as much as we use for ourselves. And that means giving and sharing, but giving and sharing constructively. What we are doing today for the poor people is we're giving charity. And we feed them and we give them blankets and we give people who are hungry, give them some money and go to buy some food. We don't know whether they are really benefiting from it or whether they are buying drugs or cigarettes or food. We don't care because we think that we have done our good deed and we walk away from there. But constructively, we have to get involved to find out why is this person incapable of taking care of himself or herself, and what can we do to help that person realize their potential and raise them and show them that they can achieve things for themselves. That is where compassion comes in, where we are willing to sacrifice some of our time and some of our talent to help somebody raise themselves up in society. I've been teaching this for the last 30 years in the United States. And I was often asked by people, what can one person do? We need a lot of people to make a change. And so I devised a tour of India. It's called the Gandhi Legacy Tour. And I take them around with me. We have identified 10 programs in India, which was started by one person. And today, after about 35 years, they have transformed the lives of millions of people. One person's actions transform the lives of millions of people. So if all of us can do that kind of thing, it could be a life-changing experience. And that is what Gandhi meant when he said we need to have constructive action. Because when people live in oppression, whether it's economic oppression or cultural or political or whatever oppression, the first thing they lose is their self-respect and self-confidence. And they come to believe that they are not capable of doing anything for themselves. They have to depend on society. So what we have to do is to rebuild their self-respect and self-confidence and show them that they can stand on their own feet and do things and become contributing citizens of the country rather than dependent on society.
Muito obrigado pelo seu tempo de compartilhar conosco sobre a sua vida. Eu sou Wilson Costa, administrador e pastor presbiteriano, executivo da Aliança Cristã Evangélica Brasileira. Eu percebi que você compartilhou muitas coisas sobre o aprendizado da vivência com seu avô e o quanto que isso é importante. E eu gostaria que você esclarecesse um pouco mais sobre o que exatamente o seu avô ensinou sobre o que é violência passiva.
Well, what he taught me about passive violence is that we, because of the culture of violence, we have become very used to discrimination, oppression, suppression. Our religion has become violent, our politics is violent, everything is violent there. Now, we don't use any physical force. We don't fight between religions. I mean, now we have the war going on, but other than that, we don't fight, but yet we promote hate. In India, we have the caste system, and in Hinduism, and there's a lot of hate promoted that. In Christianity, we have hate in America and many other places. And all of this comes from the wrong interpretation of religious texts. We have found convenient things by which we can control people and control their actions. And so we have interpreted religion in a way so we can control people. And unfortunately, in the culture of violence, control is through fear. The more fear we can put in the people, the more control we have over them. Grandfather said that we don't want fear. We don't want control through fear. Control should be through love and respect for each other. And that is why even in his lifetime, his prayer services included prayers from every major religion of the world. We would sit in an open space like this or outside in the football field, and we would have prayers. We would sing Christian prayers, Hindu prayers, Islamic prayers, all the Buddhist prayers, all the prayers together, because he had respect for all the different prayers. He said religion is like climbing a mountain. We are all ultimately going to the same peak. So why should it matter to anybody which side of the mountain we choose to climb up from? So if somebody wants to go up the Christian way or the Hindu way or the Islamic way, we respect that and let them reach the same peak there. But we have introduced a lot of competition in religion, and so everybody wants to project their religion as the best religion in the world, and all of that creates much of the conflict in society. And many of those conflicts are not necessarily violent conflicts where we don't use any force, but we hate people of other religions, and there's always this attitude of converting people and so on in every religion. And so all of these things are very negative to the philosophy of nonviolence.
Primeiro queria agradecer pela explanação, pela fala, pelo seu posicionamento. Meu nome é Felipe, eu tenho 21 anos, sou estudante de Direito e faço parte do Comitê Gestor da Rede de Apoio aos Imigrantes e Refugiados de Campinas. Desde cedo, desde criança, eu convivi lado a lado com a violência em um bairro periférico aqui de Campinas. E nesse contexto, eu sou a primeira pessoa do meu bairro a entrar em uma universidade pública e privada também. E eu vejo que no meu bairro foram tirados sonhos e frustradas esperanças do meu povo. E eu queria saber como reativar, reviver esses sonhos mortos, que, na verdade, não acredito que eles estejam mortos, acredito que eles estejam lá, mas eles não sentem esperança de uma vida melhor de onde eu venho. Como eu posso transformar o lugar e a vida do meu convívio social de onde eu venho? Obrigado.
Thank you. I think the first thing what we need to do is to find out what are the most important problems in that neighborhood and start working on each of those problems. Now, if the most important problem is economic stability, then we need to create a kind of economic program so that they can benefit from that and get a regular livelihood. One of these projects that I go to in India is the same kind of thing, where one woman, decided that there was a lot of poverty, especially among women, and she started giving them small loans to go and buy vegetables and fruits and take them from house to house and sell them and make some money. And that program began to grow, and eventually it became difficult for her to give the money, so she introduced them to a bank. And the commercial banks are very businesslike. They don't give loans to poor people very easily. And so these women were finding it very difficult to get loans from the commercial banks. So one day they came to Miss Bhatt, that is her name, who started this program, and they said, we can't work with these commercial banks. Can we not have our own bank? And she laughed at them and said, you don't even know how to sign your name. How do you going to open a bank? And she said, well, they said, don't worry, we'll sit here in your home all night. You teach us how to sign our names, and we'll go and fill in the forms. And they did that. All night they sat there, learned how to sign their names. The next day they went to the office of the cooperative office and got the forms to open a cooperative bank. And today they have a flourishing bank with millions of people who are members of that bank. And they give loans to everybody, and the whole bank is controlled by these illiterate women who have never been to school or college.
Bom dia a todos. Meu nome é Ranieri, eu sou voluntário da Fraternidade Sem Fronteiras, uma ONG aqui do Brasil que executa serviços na África. Eu gostaria de perguntar ao senhor, ao longo da sua experiência ao redor do mundo, por que nós temos dificuldades ainda tão grandes para eliminar a fome no planeta, uma vez que a produção de alimentos nós sabemos que ainda é maior do que o consumo.
Well, food production the food production, if it is bigger than consumption, then we won't have a problem. I think what you mean is the consumption is higher than the production. But at the same time, we have to remember that the affluent societies waste so much food. We consume more than we need. We throw away what we can't eat. In the United States alone, I read in the New York Times that they throw away $160 billion worth of food every year. Now, if the United States wastes so much, imagine what all the other affluent countries of the world is wasting. So we can learn to consume less and share more. And that is how we can create a balance between people. But if the rich are going to consume more than they need and the poor don't get anything at all, then we have a big conflict.
Okay.
Pessoal, pode? Não?
What I was saying is that I read in the New York Times recently that we in America we waste and destroy $160 billion worth of food every year. Now, if the United States wastes so much, imagine what the rest of the world, affluent world, is wasting every day. And if all that food could be saved and shared with other people, it would make such a big difference in feeding of the population of the world.
Bom dia.
Alô?
Bom dia, meu nome é Thaís, eu sou estagiária do Departamento de Cidadania. E a minha pergunta é uma questão que fica sempre na minha mente. Como que nós podemos promover a paz para os grandes líderes políticos que parece que estão retrocedendo com o tempo?
Well, I read a bumper sticker back home in Rochester, New York, which said, "When the people will lead, the leaders will follow." And I think it is time when the people should take the leadership. We unfortunately feel that a democracy means that we go and vote once in 4 years or 5 years, and then for the rest of the time we just sit back and enjoy. Now, that is not what democracy should be. Democracy is where people are aware of what their elected representatives are doing or not doing, and make them accountable for all of these things. And that is how politicians will then learn that the citizens are awake and they are going to make it very difficult for them to do wrong things.
Pessoal, alô? Pessoal, só uma coisinha aqui, é uma voz do além falando aqui atrás, tá? Eu estou aqui atrás do palco. Eu vou pedir para vocês, pelo adiantado da hora até, só mais 3 perguntas e depois nós vamos encerrar, ok? Só mais 3 perguntas. Muito obrigado.
Sou sacerdote católico, padre Alcides. Eu queria me colocar numa questão. Eu sei que o seu avô, ele amava Jesus Cristo. E Jesus Cristo teve momentos de ira, vários momentos. E hoje se fala muito de a virtude da indignação. Haveria uma relação entre essa raiva e essa indignação como uma virtude? Será que há alguma qualidade positiva também na própria raiva? A gente sente que no final da vida de Jesus, ele teve momentos assim fortes, como uma espécie de último esforço para ver se conseguia passar a sua mensagem, especialmente a mensagem do reino de Deus. O que o senhor poderia nos dizer a respeito? Estamos muito felizes de ouvir a sua voz e conhecê-lo pessoalmente.
Thank you very much. Yes, my grandfather was very impressed by Jesus' life, and he said that Jesus was the first non-violent activist, that he was willing to sacrifice his life for the good of his people. And he respected him for that. He also read all the scriptures of the different religions. And he came to the conclusion that no religion has the whole truth, that every one of them has a little bit of the truth. And we hold on to that as if that is the ultimate truth. He explained this in terms of 6 blind people who were asked to describe an elephant by feeling it. Now, none of them had seen an elephant at all. So each one of them was feeling a different body part. The one who was feeling the legs of the elephant said, "This feels like a huge pole." The one who was feeling the body of the elephant said, "This feels like a huge wall." The one who was feeling the trunk of the elephant said, "This is a big snake." Now, each one of them was wrong, but they were not totally wrong. That was their concept of the elephant from feeling it. But if they had come together and tried to construct the whole elephant through their experience, they might have come close to understanding what an elephant looks like. And in religion, we are like those 6 blind people. We have that little truth of the elephant, and we hang on to that, and so we have a very distorted vision of the elephant. And we need to correct that, and that is why he studied all the religions and came to that conclusion. And that is why he respected all the religions and showed that through his life he can learn to respect different religions and understand them and try to reach. That is why he called his life my search for truth, my experiments with truth.
Primeiramente, agradecer e dizer da felicidade de tê-lo aqui conosco. Meu nome é Ali El Katibi, eu sou superintendente do Instituto Jerusalém do Brasil. Desenvolvemos cultura de paz há 37 anos e utilizamos para isso os conceitos do grande Mahatma Gandhi e os seus conceitos. Deixamos uma homenagem por escrito, por todo agradecimento, por toda a sua contribuição e de sua família pela paz. E a pergunta: diante de todas as suas experiências, do seu avô, da sua família, qual é a proposta para uma justiça e uma paz para o Oriente Médio?
Thank you very much for the honor, and I treasure this very much. We, from my family, we are not in any political position. We are all individuals doing our own little thing. And like I said, that I'm a peace farmer. I go wherever I'm invited and plant seeds of peace. So I go around. I went to Palestine in 2004 when Yasser Arafat was still alive. And I talked about peace and nonviolence and all that in both Israel and Palestine. And on the last day of my stay in Palestine, Yasser Arafat invited me to his home. And he said, "You've been speaking about peace all this time. What would you do if you were in my position?" And I said, "Well, this is a hypothetical question, so I'll give you a hypothetical answer." I said, before coming to Palestine, I went to Amman, Jordan, and I saw more than 500,000 Palestinians living in very poor conditions as refugees. Their only dream was to come back to their country and live in peace. So I said, if I was in your place, I would go there, mobilize these 500,000 men, women, and children, and tell them that I'm going to lead you back to Palestine to live in peace on your own land. No police, no military, no guns, no weapons, like Gandhi's Salt March, that you're going to walk with all these men, women, and children peacefully back to the homeland. I said, if you do that, the media in all the world will come there and focus on this march from day to day. And with the presence of the international media right there, I said, I don't think Israel will have the courage to use violence against the refugees. And if they did, the conscience of the world would wake up and they will all say this is unjust, that you're killing unarmed men, women, and children. And you could win a big campaign there. But unfortunately, within 2 or 3 months of that dialogue, he died. And so I don't know what is going to happen there. But it is very sad that it is still festering, and that it is expanding, and now the whole of Middle East has gotten into a mess.
Muito obrigado.
Bom dia.
Good morning.
Meu nome é Raquel. Eu quero agradecer a sua presença, generosidade, e estou querendo pedir para o senhor falar um pouquinho mais sobre um princípio importante do seu avô, Sarvodaya. Eu aprendi sobre Sarvodaya, apesar de ser uma educadora, ativista pela paz, só aprendi sobre Sarvodaya há 1 ano e meio atrás com Satish Kumar. E pude, e também com Vandana Shiva, com Muhammad Yunus e alguns outros indianos. E o que eu quero do senhor, além do senhor poder falar sobre Sarvodaya, que o senhor nos fale sobre como fazer, promover o despertar da consciência nas pessoas sobre Sarvodaya na prática.
Well, as you know, Sarvodaya means equality all over. Everybody lives in equality and harmony with each other, where there are no poor and rich people. They're all equally satisfied people. And that is what I've been talking about, that we need to create that kind of harmony in society so we can have these little Sarvodayas all over the world. And for that, we have to become conscious of the culture of violence that dominates us. And each one of us makes that change from that culture of violence to a culture of non-violence, where we, a lot of people have been telling me that non-violence is a negative philosophy because it's the opposite of violence. And I said it's not. Non-violence is a very positive philosophy, because to practice non-violence, we have to bring out the love and respect and compassion and understanding, all positive attitudes in human beings. We have to allow that to control our minds. But because we are controlled by the culture of violence, we have all the negative things controlling us, all the hate and the prejudice and discrimination and anger and frustration. All of these things control us, so it's very easy for us to dehumanize somebody and do away with them. So we have to make a big drastic change in our thinking. And that is why he said that it can happen only when each one of us changes and makes that difference in our lives. And I think that we need to begin with the children and teach them the philosophy of nonviolence and love and respect and compassion. And they will then grow and create a nonviolent society. Yeah. Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure to be with all of you.
Campinas agradece a presença com uma salva de palmas de Arun Gandhi. Em nome dos supermercados Pague Menos e da Prefeitura Municipal de Campinas, agradecemos a presença de todos. Muito obrigado.